This is not a happy face. Remember a couple of weeks ago we sent off some oil to be analysed? Well, the results came back and they are not good, and it's going to result in the two things that always happen when it comes to racing cars: needing to spend more money and more time. But let's have a look at the analysis. All right, let's look at this report quickly. It's from Wix. Remember, we sent off an oil sample in the mail. They tested in their lab and it came back with a big stop sign at the bottom. On the left-hand side here, bearing, bushing and shaft were indicated. There's dirt in there. There's trace water in there. What does all of this mean? It means we've got to take the motor apart and see what the heck is going on in there. So, not super happy about it, but it's not going to solve itself. So let's just jump in. Okay, so here we are, doing more work, taking more stuff apart. You know the way you think when you work on a racing car, you've stripped down all the stuff that needs to be stripped down? Well, as we just found out, that is not the case. So we're going to take the head off. What does that involve? Well, so the head is right here. And if you're not familiar, the head basically does the job of getting the air and the fuel into the cylinder, and then when it's all burnt up, taking it out. So on this side, we've got the inlet, so we've got the carb inlet manifold, so that needs to come out. And then on the outside, on the other side rather, we have the exhaust manifold. If you've kind of tracked Formula Ford at all before, you'll have heard of a cross-flow engine. This is the famous cross-flow engine. It's cross-flow because the gases flow across the head from right to left. In this case, if you're looking forward in the car, so we are going to go ahead and take that stuff off, plug leads off. We'll take the rocker cover gasket off, and then we will see the kind of the valve train. And the purple here, if you're wondering if you can see that, is the head. So the whole head's going to come off. And we're going to have a look at a couple of things on the head. We will look at the valves. We will look at the rocker along the top. We'll look at the push rods, make sure the push rods aren't bent. Probably the most important thing that I'm interested in looking at is a head gasket, which is basically kind of the piece of paper. Well, it's not a piece of paper, but kind of the sealing mechanism, sort of like cardboard that sits between the head and the block. And the block is where the piston cylinders and crank are. So, with that said, let's get started. I'm going to start on the left-hand side with the carb and the inlet manifold. Okay, so believe it or not, I've probably done this 5 times already on this car, and we've only had it at the track once. So we were playing around with carbs and manifolds at the test day, or at the race day that I drove in. And so I'm actually pretty familiar with how to take this off. It's not too complicated. 5 bolts, they're a little bit tricky to get to. So, bear with me as I work my way through this. We are going to leave the carb on there because we don't need to play with that at the moment, even though we know the carb needs to come off eventually. But, just for ease of use here, we're gonna leave that carb on. We'll take the distributor cap off on this side just for access. So yeah, some of these are hard to get to, but not terribly hard. It's just 5 bolts. You'll see it's already coming loose. Okay, there it is. We'll be a lot more careful when we're putting it on because it's super important to get the manifold, this guy, lined up with the ports on the head, because you don't want to interrupt that airflow, well, that air-fuel mixture flow, because that's where all the power comes from. So it's always a bit nerve-wracking when you're taking this type of stuff off your engine to have a look in the bowels of the engine, so to speak. Or maybe a better comparison is doing open heart surgery. It's the one place you don't want to find surprises. You just don't want anything nasty going on in there. And things that could be nasty would be valves having had intimate contact with pistons, or any sort of ingestion of anything into a cylinder would be kind of nasty. Okay, that is the manifold off. I'm gonna just find somewhere nice to rest it there. Actually, I'll pull it off for a second. So you can see the ports there. I'm not gonna pull this off, but this is the inlet manifold gasket. So I'm not seeing anything strange here at this point, but we wouldn't really expect to because we don't have a lot of visibility. So that is that side done. I'm gonna find a nice place for it to rest. Okay. Okay, next is the exhaust, and similar situation to the manifold. All the bolts are reasonably accessible, so should come off relatively quickly here. There we go. We do have just maybe from this angle you can't see it, but we've got this big heavy exhaust. Strictly speaking, it's an exhaust manifold, and the exhaust itself, which is kind of heavy. And as we talked about before, these engines vibrate a lot because they're mounted right with the chassis. And so I'm told these tend to break quite a bit. So something for further down the road is a mount to support this a little bit better. But unfortunately, those level of details we're not at just yet. We've got to get the more substantial issues sorted. Okay, just about to come off here. There's one Allen head bolt here, which is just a little bit tricky. Okay, there it is. Exhaust off. Okay, we're getting a bit closer. Let's take plug leads off, spark plug leads, or spark wires as they're known in the US. Okay, pull that out of the way. We are getting closer. Push that just out of the way so you can see here exhaust ports, 4 exhaust ports. And you can see, and the good news is in stripping all this down we can clean it up. What you can see here is the purple is the head and the blue is the block. And we're really interested in, and actually maybe we will clean that up first. We're really interested in what's going on where the two of these guys meet. But let's take the rocker cover off. Okay, here we go. Hopefully there won't be any or much oil. Oh, uh-oh. So I'm be careful and try. This gasket's brand new. So I'd like to try and save that if at all possible. Okay. Okay, so we're just gonna wind this over, put it over here, well out of the way. Quick look there, not seeing anything too crazy. Okay, so what do we see right here? Rocker shaft, valves and valve springs around them, and push rods are on this side. So we did have a little look in here before, didn't see anything too crazy. So in order to, we're going to take the rocker shaft off, and in order to do that, we want to do it in a way where we don't damage it, we don't bend it in any way. So one of the things is, right now we have some of the valves in compression, so there's this force running through this. So what we're going to do is rotate the engine and try and get these to the point where there's little or no compression on any of the springs. And then what we'll do is, these are the bolts. We'll, as I said, we'll open them really, really gradually so the shaft comes up by itself like this in a straight line. All right, wish me luck. Okay, let's start rotating the engine. We attach the ratchet here to essentially to the crank, to the water pump pulley at the end of the crank, and starting to rotate the engine. You can see this guy's coming up. Okay. And that's about as close as we're going to get. Okay, this is where we start loosening bolts really carefully and really incrementally. So, you know what? I'm going to get a bigger ratchet so I've got more control over my torque. Okay, bigger ratchet. Okay, that's at like 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of a rotation. Same here. Working from that outside in. Okay, before we go too much further, one of the things we want to remember is we're going to obviously reassemble all of this. We're hoping it doesn't require any work at all. We're just doing an inspection. The push rods, which you probably can't see from that angle, are on this side, but we want to make sure everything stays, we number everything as we take it off, and it stays together. So for right now, we just need to worry about the push rods. And we're going to do a trick that has been around for a long time, and my dad taught me when I was about 15, where we're going to get a piece of cardboard, we're going to number it, and we're going to put the push rods through the piece of cardboard, and then as we take other things off, potentially on the valve train here, we will match those two. So let me get a piece of cardboard. Okay, 2 pieces of cardboard, one numbered, one for our push rods, and then one just to lay the rocker shaft down on. So let's take the rocker shaft off. Okay, you can see it's nice and loose. I think all the bolts are out. Yeah, clear of all the push rods. We'll do a little inspection on the rocker shaft later. So let's do this first. Here is a push rod. So the cam in these cars is down in the block. It rotates, pushes up the push rod, which pushes the rocker, which pushes the valve, the appropriate valve, down an exhaust or an inlet valve. So let's be careful here. This is our number 1. Push it through our piece of cardboard like this. Now we're going to look at those push rods as well, just to make sure they're straight, but let's just disassemble it first. And 8. All 8 push rods numbered nicely. Okay, what next? Well, now it starts getting really serious. The only thing left are the head bolts. And again, this is the same scenario as earlier. We want to rotate our way around and loosen these gradually, such that we don't cause any warping. Now this is a cast iron head, so it's pretty strong. So I'd be surprised if we did anything nasty like that, but better safe than sorry. And actually, I think what we're going to do first is we are going to clean it around here, around the mating surfaces, before we go any further. Okay, clean off the mating surfaces. So we're going to rotate our way around the bolts, the head bolts. Oh, I thought it was a 3/4. No, it is not. Oh, it might be an 11/16. Okay, for some reason we lost the audio here, so this is a voiceover afterwards. Look at those muscles. So what I'm doing here is just alternating which bolt I loosen across the head, just so we don't warp anything. And they're torqued pretty tight, so you need a good bar, good lever. But again, the trick here is just to alternate, swap around, so we don't bend anything. It is a cast iron head, so it is unlikely that we would actually bend anything, but it's best to do it right. And now the suspense builds. Will this thing come off cleanly or not? Well, here is the moment of truth. Perfect. Love it. Okay, so we'll put that away and have a look on the block. Okay, let's have a little look in here to see what's going on. Well, what I don't see is any damage on the top of the pistons. I don't see anything strange on the deck, which is the top of the block. Although, I'll be honest with you, I don't know exactly what I'd be looking for there. And then the last thing we're going to look at is inside the cylinder itself, the cylinder wall at the top, to see if there's any sort of lip there. That would be more of a wear type of an issue, which I'd be surprised because this engine has so little time on it. But something we got to check on anyway. Okay, let's have a look at the head. So I'm going to turn this around for you. So just to orientate you, right, got the valves here, valve spring on it. I forgot what these are called. But basically the components to keep the spring, the valve spring on the valve itself. And we're going to turn this around to have a look at the underside of the head. So, oops, everything looks pretty good to me there. I'm not seeing any obvious damage anywhere. What we might do is actually clean it up a little bit. So you'll see the valves are different sizes. If I'm recalling correctly, the smaller ones are the exhaust valves. See, they're a different color. Probably because they're dealing with different types of gases. These probably have the exhaust gases rushing by them, and they have this more kind of burnt look. And then the bigger ones, generally speaking, you want to get as much of the you want to get as much fuel and air in there in the first place. So that is, I think, why they're bigger. Other than that, I'm going to clean it up and have a look at this head gasket a little bit closer, but it doesn't look too bad. So I think so far so good. What we might do is see how well these valves are sealing. So you want the valves to seal against the valve seats, basically against the head really well. So when they're closed, we're not allowing anything to come in or out of the cylinder itself. If they're not sealing very well, then you will lose compression, which means you lose power. When I did a compression test on this, one of the cylinders seemed to be down a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. I think it was cylinder 2, so it'd be this one. So what we could do is, I think what we'll do is we'll attempt to clean out some of this gunk. It looks pretty junky in there. And then we'll pour some water in and see if anything's leaking. And we do have a fix which is relatively easy for that, if that is the case. We're going to do a little test. We're going to pour some water into each of the ports, and we're going to see, fill it up. Okay, it's pretty full. And the hope is that the water does not seep out over time. Okay. And we are testing the exhaust ports here. We'll have to flip it over and do the other side. Top this up a little bit so they're similar amounts. Well, the good news is I'm not seeing... Oh, I see a tiny little drop. There are some little drops appearing. So it might be worth just taking those valves out to lap them, which it's going to take a little bit longer, but seeing as we've gone... Right, so while we have the push rods out, we're going to check them to make sure that they're straight. And so we'll take them out one by one. We'll just clean it off. And there are more accurate ways to do this, but I don't really have the dial gauge set up to do that. So what we're looking for here, I don't actually 100% know really. These look pretty good. I'm not seeing any big scoring or anything. Nicely rounded. It's kind of a cup at the top for the rocker, which looks good. So the other thing we can do is just roll these. And this surface is pretty straight. I'm also going to just put an edge on it, a straight edge. Okay, so number one looks pretty good to me. Let's power our way through here. Okay, there's a bit of a bend in pushrod 8. So cylinder 4, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely visible when I put the straight edge on it. So I'll have to explore a little bit. Yeah, I mean, they all have maybe a tiny little bow in them. You can kind of hear it when they roll. Yeah, okay, so pushrod 8 is probably the one that does have a little tiny bow to it. I wouldn't expect it to, or it doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to do a bit of explanation, talk to some folks to see what the guidance is on that. But nothing too bad. And maybe now's the time that I can let you know something a little bit embarrassing that happened. When I was driving the car on its inaugural race weekend, I did at one point in time manage to grab first gear instead of third gear, which engines don't really like. And so I didn't quite look at the tachometer to see the RPM, but I imagine it was pretty high. So the fact that most of these push rods seem to be pretty good means that I got away with something. So let's put the push rods away and let's go to the head and start looking at taking those valves out to start lapping them. Okay, here we are back with the head. We're going to take each of these valves out and we are going to lap the valve seats, meaning we're going to polish the mating surface between the valve and the head. So we do that with a little bit of paste and this tool here. So we've got a fine grade and a coarse grade paste that we'll use, and then we'll use this guy here to actually spin the valve in the valve seat to polish it up. So first thing we got to do though is take the valve out, and we do that by compressing the valve spring, and there's a little collet or two collets in here basically that hold it all in place. and then we'll take the collet out and allow the spring to relax, and the valve will come straight out. And we can start looking at the valves to see if they're bent, and then we'll polish each one by one. So let's go. Here's my valve compressor tool, and so this is a new tool to me, and I haven't used one of these in a long time. So what we do is we this keeps the valve pushed up in the head, and then we compress this down over the valve, and it compresses the spring rather. And so we put this here, do it on valve number 1, just tighten it up carefully. Okay, so hopefully you can see the valve itself a little bit better this way. So, and we start compressing the spring. Okay, it's kind of walking a bit on me. Quite sure why it's doing that. Did not have this. There we go. Okay, it's still walking around a bit. I don't like that. I do want to be a little bit careful with this because springs are strong enough. So hopefully you can see that it's actually compressing the spring and the valve is staying put, and what we will get is 2 collets. Basically they form a collar around the valve and keep everything in place. Okay, let's see. We have, okay, I'm going to use my little magnet here to help me out. Okay, so there's the first collet. See, it's got 3 grooves in it. Place this here. Come on now. Out you come. Second one is out. Okay, and then we carefully relax the spring. I do not like this. This is kind of walking around quite a bit on me. Okay, so hopefully you can see the spring is relaxing, so to speak. Taking the compression out of it. Okay, I'm not a super fan of this tool. It's got some flaws. Maybe I'm using it wrong, I don't know. We'll see. Okay, there we go. Take the tool away. So there we have the spring. Don't know what you call that actually, spring platform maybe. Sitting at the top. Turn the head around for you. And there's the valve. So this is valve cylinder number 4. And I'm just trying to eyeball here a little bit just to see if I see anything weird. It's hard to tell. So here is the valve. The back of the valve itself doesn't look particularly clean. Now, so my understanding is this engine was built quite a while ago, but it has not seen a lot of action. So, wouldn't be too surprising if things are not so great in here. Might be a little bit of surface rust. It's not too bad. Hopefully you can see that in there somehow. It's kind of shiny. It's also a bit dark. Right, let's lap some valves. So here is the valve. Here is the grinding paste. I'm going to start with the fine because these don't seem to be too bad. So let's see how we get on. So a little bit of fine paste. Easy for me to say. We'll just drop 4 little blobs on there. And this isn't necessarily the best way to do this, the right angle, but you guys will be able to see better. So we slide it in there, tap it in, and then we use this bad boy, kind of use suction on there. And just to give you an idea of what we're doing, we're just spinning it around like that. Now, this angle isn't great. Usually you do it this way, so let's see. I've seen people do this with an attachment to a drill. You don't want to absolutely hammer it, but just to speed things up, you can do it that way. Okay, I can kind of hear the sound is changing a little bit, so that's a good sign. And it's all about getting a nice, clean, shiny surface ultimately. So let's see how we are looking. I'm going to clean it off a bit here. Yeah, it looks a little bit shinier and cleaner. So I'm not sure if you can see that. It's a tiny bit shinier. I'm actually going to do another little round of it. So maybe we should be using the coarser paste on it. Let's see. By the way, in the middle of the video, I just got a call from a buddy of mine who's told me about a van that is set up for an open wheel Formula car to sit right in the back of a sprinter van, or kind of a transit van for the Europeans out there, that sort of style. What I love about that is the racing community. People know that we're trying to get everything set back up again, and we're trying to help people out, do deals. And so thank you, Jay, for thinking of us and keeping us in the loop. It's also, I think, I wouldn't say misery loves company, but this racing stuff is an addiction, and it's fun to have other people addicted with you at the same time. So with that said, let me just give this another blast here. Okay, let's pop this one out. Clean it off. Yeah, it's kind of looking better already. So I think what I have learned is that I should probably do the coarse paste and then the fine paste. And to be fair, the engine, as I said, did sit for a while, so it's probably not a huge surprise that it needed a little bit of lapping again, a little bit of love and attention. So there's number 1 done. I want to go ahead and do the rest of these, and we'll come back to you after that. Okay, so the top end is looking pretty good. No major damage in there that I could find, so that's positive. We're going to have to take a gamble though. The bottom end, the crank and the bearings are not something I can work on right now. It's too big a job. We'll just have to hope that that is actually okay. So we'll take a gamble there. We're coming to the holiday period over here, so we're going to be pretty busy over the next 2 weeks. Luke will be back. He's doing exams this week for high school. He's got to get his GPA up so he can do driver school. So we'll talk to you soon. Bye.